you for joining us for our webinar. Today we'll be discussing preparing for the next generation of car buyers. My name is Joey Wheeler, and I am Vice President of Product here at Affinitiv.
And I am Briana Hopkins. I am a Product Manager of Reporting Applications at Affinitiv.
Today we're going to be talking about what Gen Z tells us actually works when it comes to buying and servicing vehicles. Everything we're going to talk about today is grounded in our consumer survey data, which Brianna is going to explain a little bit more about how we landed there, but we're not going to just stop at these insights. We're going to connect what we're seeing directly to real solutions that Affinitiv offers, especially in areas where dealers are feeling the most friction and where these expectations are moving and evolving the fastest. The goal today is to understand what Gen Z responds to, where they get stuck, and most importantly, what dealers can do about it in a practical, actionable way. As we go through this, feel free to drop questions in the Q&A section in Microsoft Teams. That should be available to all of the attendees. We'll keep an eye on that as we go. We're going to aim to leave some time at the end so that we can answer questions live that might throw in there. But our team's also going to be keeping an eye on that as we go throughout the session, and we'll respond where possible. So feel free to throw your questions in there as you have them.
So let's look at where this data is coming from. So as Joey mentioned, as part of our annual consumer survey, we collected feedback from over 1,700 consumers who had completed a dealership experience between March 2024 and March 2025. So this dealership experience was either purchasing a vehicle or servicing a vehicle with a dealership. And this really gives us a strong view of real recent dealership behavior and where Gen Z stands out. You can see here that Gen Z is already 25% of our consumer base. So that idea that Gen Z isn't coming soon, they are already here. So Joey's going to highlight kind of what stands out about Gen Z within this survey.
So first off, I want to look at something that I think is a common misconception, and that's reframing something that I think is really important here. Many dealerships interpret Gen Z behavior as distrust or hesitation, but the data from our survey shows that their discomfort actually comes from uncertainty. Their anxiety levels during the buying process are significantly higher than other generations. Our survey data highlights that Gen Z reports elevated nervousness across key points in the journey, especially when pricing or next steps feel unclear to them. Think about how Gen Z engages with the world around them. They're used to real-time tracking, instant price comparisons, and transparent processes. When they enter a dealership and the process is not explained clearly or numbers shift without context, their confidence drops immediately. The good news here is that reducing uncertainty is completely within dealer control. Clear communication, predictable steps, and fewer surprises make the entire experience feel more trustworthy. If we view Gen Z through this lens, everything else we're going to talk about today becomes a lot easier to understand.
So throughout the data, we see that Gen Z starts their research journey earlier and across more channels than other generations. And here we can see where this research starts. So Gen Z is 7 times more likely to turn to influencers and dealer social media pages when researching. You may be familiar with Russ Flips Whip, Benzos and Bow Ties. These are some of the places that they're going to for recommendations. Surprising no one, SMS is their preferred method of communication. And we see that Gen Z shops. So they visit an average of 2.6 dealerships and test drives 2.6 vehicles before a purchase. So while we tend to think of this generation as very digital, they are actually coming into stores as part of their shopping process. Video inspections remain highly effective in recommendation approvals. They have a high digital wallet adoption rate, so they really do want everything on their phone. And they are more comfortable and willing to engage with chatbots. And what's interesting here in the survey is they also reported some of the highest confidence in recognizing when they are interacting with a chatbot compared to other generations. But they're more comfortable interacting with them. They have no problem talking to a chatbot as long as it's providing value to them. And overall, the point here is that one channel doesn't replace another. Gen Z is cross-checking everything. They're looking for a dealership experience that feels consistent from research to purchase all the way to service. And Affinitiv has worked to create solutions that help dealers stay in the game in this research journey. And we'll take a look at them throughout this presentation.
So let's take a look at the first of those solutions that leans into some of the themes that Briana just introduced. So first up, we have our messaging and RO tracker solutions. As Briana referenced, this generation, but also a lot of other generations, lean into SMS. It's the channel that you're most connected to. Your phone is your lifeline. It's everyone's lifeline. Our messaging solution is our two-way texting solution to answer for that. It's incredibly effective for dealers to stay engaged with their consumers. And what's really interesting is one of the other things that we pulled out in our consumer survey data is that not only do they lean heavily into SMS, their expectations on response times actually aren't as aggressive as some other generations. So Gen Z actually is a little more lax with how quickly those responses come from the businesses that they're engaging with, but they absolutely expect to be engaged with on that channel. Our two-way texting solution also integrates with our overall Affinitiv suite and platform. So communications from throughout all of our suite of offerings, including scheduling, our essentials, marketing intelligence platform, all of those route through our messaging tool, which gives a really cohesive single thread in terms of the communications that are happening with the consumer and your dealership. RO Tracker is another side of this that we're leaning into, and this is kind of what we internally refer to as kind of the pizza tracker. So this is where, once the consumer is in the lane, this gives them a central location to go back to understand what's going on. Where's their vehicle at? What's the current status of it? So you can see a sample here of what that looks like, and consumer engagement with this has been incredibly high as well. Goal with both of these is to create real-time, mobile-first communications and better transparency for the consumer experience. The other item I want to highlight here is something else that Briana touched on, which is digital wallet. And Affinitiv solutions leverage digital wallet for offers throughout. And if you're not doing this, you're really missing out. Gen Z in particular expects digital wallet integration, but all consumers are heading in this direction. So you can see some samples here of what that looks like. But think about this from the consumer perspective. They're used to seeing this from all of the vendors that they're working with. So this is an important place to make sure that your dealer is showing up in their wallet as well. Lots of advantages here in terms of the consumer side. Obviously, they're not having to print out coupons and bring them in or frantically pull up an email when they're in the lane to say, oh, I had a coupon for that. Let me find it. They can access their wallet, which is where all of their other credentials, credit cards, and offers live. And depending on the consumer's preferences of their particular wallet, Google Wallet, Apple Wallet, Samsung Wallet, they'll actually get reminders and notifications as well. So based on the expiration dates of those offers, they'll get reminders that those are coming up, which could also encourage them to show up for that appointment that they're coming in for. And also, if they have location services enabled, they will likely get a notification when they arrive to remind them and make that offer available to them in their wallet so they can quickly pull it up and show it as part of the retail experience.
Okay, so we've talked about how Gen Z researches dealerships for sales and service and how dealers can make that experience more positive. But let's reframe and look at where Gen Z says they experience friction in the dealership experience. So these friction points are incredibly consistent. The first is pricing clarity. When fees or numbers feel confusing, trust erodes very quickly. And the data shows that fair and reasonable pricing is Gen Z's #1 motivator when choosing a dealership. The second drop-off point is the digital reset. Our surveys show that many Gen Z shoppers begin their journey online, but a large majority feel that they have to repeat that entire process once they arrive in store. That break in continuity is a major friction point, especially for a generation that we've learned is spending more time shopping online than other generations. This effort can really feel like it was for nothing when they have to start all over again in the store. And the third area is service. Gen Z reports far higher discomfort with service recommendations when they're not supported with proof or clear explanations. That idea of, just trust us, we know, they want to see the proof. These friction points are not caused by specific products overall. They're caused by the experience. And the opportunity here is that all of these moments can be improved with just clearer communication and stronger continuity. So let's talk about that first point of failure. Gen Z tells us very directly where lack of clarity shows up the most often. And it comes down to pricing, time, and recommendations. 93% of Gen Z want clear service pricing on their scheduler. And we always kind of do this as a gotcha for dealers of can you honestly, thinking about your dealership, can you tell me that today, if I were to go online and schedule service, that I could very clearly see your pricing? This is no longer a nice to have for consumer. It's an absolute non-negotiable. 21% of Gen Z said that long purchase times are the worst part of the buying process. And 57% said that they trust video evidence more than a dealership's word. When any of these areas feel unclear, that confidence for Gen Z drops, even when their intent to buy might be really high. So what does Gen Z respond to? You could probably guess the answer is transparency. We see that Gen Z is willing to be flexible when the benefit is clear. So transparency and communication, but also in added benefits. 82% of Gen Z said that they would take a less convenient appointment if they received a discount. And from a dealership perspective, this creates a real opportunity. Imagine you have a customer coming to your site looking for an afternoon appointment, but that time isn't available. Well, instead of abandoning the process or jumping to book with another dealership, a clear incentive gives them a reason to stay and just choose a different time frame. On the customer side, there's a real tangible benefit. On the dealership side, instead of overloading peak hours and leaving other times underutilized, you're able to better balance your shop with these incentives. So that transparency turns flexibility into a win for both sides. And lastly, we see a huge benefit when recommendations are grounded in real data. Gen Z is nearly 2 times more likely than baby boomers to accept recommendations when it's based on similar vehicles. Real easy information to be giving them. So overall, transparency doesn't just inform, it helps you create momentum with your consumers.
That leads us into our next Affinitiv solution, which leans into the flex on time, save on cost that Briana raised. This is our Capacity IQ solution. So this is a feature of our book scheduling tool that answers for that exact scenario that Briana outlined. So you can see a sample here of an online appointment scheduler. You can imagine the consumers going through this process. And you can see some of these times are highlighted and they have an incentive discount attached to them. And what we're doing here is we're looking at that dealer's actual capacity and we're using machine learning to basically map out and determine where are those lulls in the service drive, the times that are hard to fill. So maybe you have regular days between 2 and 4, people are coming in early in the day, but there's always that afternoon lull where you don't have new appointments coming in. This helps you, A, optimize your shop, also provides an incentive to the consumer so that they choose those slots. It's a win-win for everybody and really flows in nicely with the book scheduling process overall.
So the next breakdown that we see is personalization. One size fits none. So Gen Z, we see that they trade their data for value, but only when the experience earns it. Over half prefer online tools for comparisons and negotiations, and many are comfortable with personalized videos and location-based offers. And this highlights a major difference between Gen Z and older generations. Gen Z is more receptive to personalized communications, but the nuance is that personalization only works when it feels useful. If it saves them money, simplifies a decision, or gives them clearer guidance, they appreciate it. If it's generic or feels disconnected, they're going to tune it out just as quickly. So let's bring this to life with a really simple example. Imagine a consumer is receiving two different personalized sales messages for a new vehicle. The first message looks personalized, features a model that we know they were browsing online, but nothing in the message is actually connecting to who they are as a customer. There's no mention of their current vehicle, no pricing context that relates to them, and nothing that really feels unique. It's really just a general offer that happens to be dressed up with a guess at what they might like. Gen Z is going to see right through that. They're getting these personalized communications all the time. They can tell the difference between one that's valuable and one that's a lot more generic. Now compare that to a message that uses the data you already have in your CRM or your DMS. Imagine this customer now receives a short video that uses their name, displays their current vehicle, shows their equity position and their payoff options, highlights a newer model that genuinely fits their history and preferences, maybe life events. It even shows a personalized pricing scenario based on their current situation. That message is going to feel much more relevant. It feels like it was actually built for them, not just some demographic category. And it's really going to gain their attention in comparison to other personalized offers they're receiving. And Gen Z responds strongly to that level of clarity because it gives them something they didn't have before. It gives them new information that helps them validate or reconsider their decision. And when personalization provides value instead of just noise, it becomes a trust builder with your dealership. For Gen Z, digital isn't just about experience or convenience, it's about control. So self-service tools really help them explore, compare, and decide at their own pace. We see that over half of Gen Z respondents prefer online tools for vehicle comparisons and deal negotiations. It's almost a 30% lift over non-Gen Z responses. It's huge. And we already touched on personalizations a bit. 75% of Gen Z said that they were comfortable with those personalized video offers, which is a 40% lift over non-Gen Z. And 58% is comfortable with location-based personalized offers, which is a 44% lift over non-Gen Z. So these personalized communications is really just the trade-off. If they're giving you their data, they want to make sure you're using it to provide value back to them. And that sense of control and personalized communications helps reduce pressure and increase confidence in Gen Z buyers.
So let's talk a little bit more about personalization. I want to talk first about our smart video solution. So this is part of our Essentials Marketing Intelligence platform. And what this does is this is exactly leaning into what Briana just referenced, which is that personalization at a video level. So you can see a sample here that we're looking at. This is actually an equity piece from our quote tool. And you can see that this is a commercial style video. So the consumer receives, in this case, an email letting them know they have equity in their vehicle. And we're trying to encourage them to engage with that. We're going to highlight their current vehicle, their current payment, and then we're also going to highlight something that we can get them into based on their current equity position. All of that's happening on our platform and on other platforms. But one of the really interesting things here is this AI video edition. So you can see this particular consumer named Bibi has received a customized video. So when that email comes through, they're going to see an animated GIF at the top of that email that has their name in it. And you can imagine most consumers, when they see something that has their name in it and it's moving, they're like, oh, this is not just a generic thing. They're talking to me specifically. So when the consumer clicks on that CTA, they're taken to our quote portal in this instance, where they can explore their vehicle options. But they're going to get this commercial style video that has their name in it. It has visuals of their vehicle. It references their payment details, all in a presentation that feels like a commercial that was made for them, which really increases engagement and gives them that next step to engage with the CTA or call to action that we're looking for them to engage with. Another extension of this is something that we're pushing into in the AI video space, and that is an extension of Smart Video that is our avatar offering. So I'm going to show you a sample here of myself, and the words that you're going to hear me say are not words that I have actually said in real life. But what we're able to do here is to take a short source video of someone at the dealership and turn that into an avatar so that your dealership can present to your consumers perhaps their service advisor or a service director even that they engaged with or saw at the dealership. We're planning to use this on a variety of touch points, but I think some of the ones that you can see would be most engaging would be something like a sales or a service follow-up, getting a customized video that appears as though it's that sales or service advisor sitting at their desk saying, Briana, I want to thank you for coming in today. That's really important to us that you're completely satisfied. Here is my cell phone number. Feel free to give me a call if you had any concerns. I'd like to address them personally. We've also seen in some of the data initially that recalls are also another strong area where this human face being presented to consumers can be extra valuable. So I'll go ahead and let this play now so you can see what a sample of this looks like. You can imagine the power of this, not only the commercial style videos, but this avatar presentation at scale. Every consumer receives their own personalized piece happening at scale across your entire consumer database. And the last thing on personalization that I want to touch on is what we refer to as emotion-driven vehicle imagery. So you can see some samples here of this in practice, but what we're doing here is we are using seasonality and regionality of the consumer to influence the creative that's presented to them. And the important thing to keep in mind here is that this is not a bunch of back-end template management that's happening that's being swapped out so that Briana gets the beach scenes because she's in the Southeast and Dean gets the Pacific Northwest imagery. This is all intelligence that's built into the platform to understand where the consumer is located, their physical location, and their seasonality that we're currently in to help invoke a little bit of that emotion into what they're receiving. It's a somewhat subconscious process, but when the consumer sees something that they feel is more attached to them locally, the engagement naturally increases because instead of seeing something that has nothing to do with them, it feels more personal. It feels, connected to them and their location and what they're experiencing right now. It's a subtle shift, but it makes campaigns and marketing initiatives feel much more intentional.
So jumping into the final point of failure, prove it or lose it. Service recommendations fail when Gen Z can't see the why. And what we see throughout the survey is that the issue isn't resistance to service. It's a lack of visible justification. So think about common recommendations like a tire cupping, for example. Something like tread depth might be easy to show through an image. You can take your little coin, take the photo of it, send it to the customer. It's pretty obvious that there's an issue. But things like tire cupping might be a little bit harder to capture in a still image. It doesn't explain why that uneven wear matters, how it's affecting the ride quality, and ultimately what's going to happen if it's ignored. And that's where video becomes really critical. A short video can show that uneven tire wear in motion and help the customer understand what they're looking at and why it matters now. And the impact shows clearly in the data. When Gen Z is shown video evidence, 74% said that they would approve the repair. That's significantly higher than older generations. And it tells us something important. They're not resistant to service recommendations. They're resistant to uncertainty. Proof removes that uncertainty. It turns the recommendation from take our word for it to see it for yourself. And when they reach that level of confidence, the decisions happen faster, and that trust is going to carry into their next visit. So service, ultimately, we all know, drives loyalty. And that is true for Gen Z as well. 99% of Gen Z consumers who are satisfied with their service visit said that they intend to return to the same dealership. That is universal loyalty, and you almost never see a number that high in customer experience research. However, when the visit does not go well, return intent drops to roughly 1/3. That's a dramatic swing, and nothing in the middle is influencing it. It is simply how the experience feels. Either the customer leaves confident and supported, or they leave uncertain and unlikely to return. And the biggest drivers of Gen Z discomfort are cost uncertainty and recommendations that lack context or proof. But the encouraging part is the concerns are completely manageable. As we discussed, when service team uses videos, clear explanations, photos, visual aids, that confidence is going to increase very quickly. Gen Z, they don't expect the repair process to be simple. They're aware that it's not, but they want the information to be clear. And there's an added layer that's important to recognize with Gen Z. This is a social forward generation. They talk about their experiences much more openly than any group before them, and they do not limit that to complaints. They'll share a positive service visit just as quickly as a negative one. So a smooth visit can turn into a recommendation post, a review, or just a message to their group chat, telling their friends and family where to go. But a confusing or uncomfortable visit is going to spread just as easily in the other direction. So this is not only about earning their loyalty, it's about earning their influence. One positive service interaction can ripple out to dozens of people, and the same is true of a negative one. Service becomes the moment where trust is built or broken at scale. And as the data shows, when Gen Z trusts the process, loyalty becomes almost guaranteed. And when you combine loyalty with the power of their social influence, service becomes one of the strongest opportunities in the dealership to shape your long-term customer behavior.
So let's talk about some solutions that help us ensure that we capitalize that and provide a positive experience. As Briana highlighted in the data, there's a trust level that's built with video, and our MPI, our multi-point inspection, and tech video solutions are the natural response and answer to that. These are tools that allow your dealership to perform their MPIs digitally, track them with clear visibility to the customer so that you can push that to them for reviews and approvals. But the most important thing here, based on the data that we've seen, is the video and media component. So tech video is the functionality within our MPI tool that allows you to provide that for consumers. So directly from the mobile app, you can capture video, audio, and photos, attach those to the MPI, which builds that natural trust. I love the tagline that we have on that slide of prove it or lose it. And I feel very strongly, based on what we've seen with dealers and in the data, that is absolutely something that holds true. It's just leaving it on the table if you do not provide a video backup or a photo at the very least. An MPI and tech video are the solutions that allow us to do that. And where are we going next with tech video? This is a little preview of what's right around the corner. So we're pushing into hands-free wearable integration for our service lane applications. We've got this all wrapped up. We're waiting for final approval from Meta. And we're calling this wearables integration because we're agnostic when it comes to the tech behind those wearables. For those of you that might be familiar, Meta's Ray-Ban line is very popular, probably the most popular right now in terms of hands-free wearables, which is the glasses with the camera and the microphones in them. And what this does is this allows us to integrate that as the audio and visual source for those videos that I just mentioned. So you can imagine happening today all over the place, lots of phones, lots of iPads or tablets that are being used to perform these videos that I referenced, which is an incredibly lightweight and powerful way to execute on that today. But what we're pushing into is the wearable integration there, which means that the technician experience is going to shift a bit here, that instead of carrying around that tablet or that phone to take that video, instead, what they'll be doing is leaving their tablet or their phone, starting your inspection, and then hands-free being able to walk around the vehicle and capture a much more compelling angle and story to provide to the consumer. Some of this is, really valuable because the technician is then hands-free. They have the ability to perhaps pull out an air filter and show it as part of the video that they're communicating to consumers. But one of the other things that's really powerful here is actually the audio quality. These wearables have, on average, 6 to 9 microphones within the glasses. And you can imagine in everyone's busy and loud service bays, those microphones being directly on the technician's face when they're being captured results in much higher quality audio, which only translate to a better experience for the consumer when they're actually viewing that. So super excited. This will be coming very shortly as an addition to our lane solutions. So let's zoom out a minute. We've talked about a lot here, but the main takeaway that we want to give to you is that the patterns that we've talked about today, they don't belong to Gen Z. Throughout this presentation, we've talked about transparency, digital continuity, personalization, and the importance of clarity in service. Gen Z only makes these signals louder. They react faster. They articulate their frustrations more directly than other generations. And because of that, they actually do us a favor in a lot of ways because they're letting us have a preview and see the friction points that others have been quietly working around for years. Think back to some of the moments that we highlighted earlier in our discussion. The anxiety that comes from unclear pricing is not unique to Gen Z. The frustration of having to start over in store after doing hours of online research is not unique to Gen Z. And the desire for proof and service is also not unique to Gen Z. They're universal pain points. Gen Z simply refuses to tolerate them in silence. This is where the ripple effect that we're trying to illustrate here becomes really important. When Gen Z normalizes clear communications, millennials begin to expect the same. When Gen Z responds strongly to continuity between their online behavior and their in-store behavior, Gen X quickly realizes that they also prefer that. And when Gen Z rewards service departments for providing the video and visual proof, older customers start to view those same tools as helpful and modern. The behaviors don't stay contained to one age group. They move outward. This is why preparing for Gen Z is really preparing for the modern customer in general. Their expectations reflect the direction the entire marketplace is really already moving. They're simply amplifying that shift. The goal here is not to build a Gen Z strategy. The goal and what we want to help you achieve is that your dealership experience feels modern, predictable, and consistent for everyone. When you solve for the clearest and most sensitive generation in this pipeline, the improvements ripple outward and elevate the experience for every single consumer. One thing that I want to highlight as part of this conversation is that there's a lot of other brands out there that have already figured out a lot of these things we're talking about today. And every industry that serves Gen Z has already moved towards transparency, personalization, and seamless digital experiences. Retail, banking, food delivery, travel, even your home utilities have set a really high expectation for clarity and convenience for consumers. That context shapes how Gen Z evaluates your dealership. They're comparing the process to every frictionless experience they have ever had, not just other stores in their same market. We're including this slide to remind us that the bar is not set by automotive alone. It's set by the broader consumer universe that Gen Z interacts with every day. And the more our dealers align with those expectations, the easier it becomes to earn their trust. So if there's one thing we want you to walk away with today, it's that Gen Z does not reward perfection or expect perfection. They reward clarity. They reward experiences that feel predictable and understandable to them, and that's respectful of the time they have already invested. Throughout this conversation, we've shown that Gen Z is not avoiding dealerships because of pricing or inventory or technology. They're stepping back when the process feels uncertain, when things or steps don't line up, or when trust feels hard to earn. Their hesitation is not about the product. It's about the experience that's wrapped around it. When expectations are clear, when pricing makes sense to them, and when recommendations are backed by proof, something really important happens. Their confidence rises almost immediately. And as we saw in the service data, confidence turns directly into loyalty. As I said in the Ripple graphic, the important part here is that none of this is Gen Z only when it comes to the playbook. It's not a strategy for one generation. These are all improvements that raise the quality of the entire customer experience. The dealerships that win over the next decade won't be the ones chasing trends, or building off one-off generational strategies. They'll be the ones that remove friction across the entire journey, respect the customer's need for control, and deliver consistency whether the experience starts online, in store, or in the service lane. Because the real question is not whether Gen Z will buy and service cars. They're absolutely going to do that. The real question is whether they will buy and service them with you. And that answer depends entirely on how clearly and confidently the customer journey is delivered. As we wrap up, I know it might be hard to believe, but we've only scratched the surface of the data that we collected. This is a very pared down view of the entire consumer survey data set. And we tried to share some of the most impactful highlights, but there's a lot more depth behind each of these trends. So if you scan this QR code that's on the screen, you'll get access to the full white paper, and you'll find the complete survey results and more context around what's really driving behaviors across Gen Z consumers. So if anything you've heard today resonated with you, which I really hope that it did, or sparked ideas on where there might be gaps or opportunities for your dealership, this is where you can go deeper. So if you just scan that QR code, you'll get a digital copy, and we highly encourage you to take a look and share it with your teams. This information has been very valuable to us, and we hope it'll be just as valuable to you. Really appreciate everyone's attendance and time today. We'll pull here just a second and see if there's any questions. I already responded to one that was thrown in. But if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the Q&A here at the very end. I've also left my personal email here at Affinitiv, as well as Briana's, so feel free to reach out to one or both of us. And this QR code will actually take you to our main Affinitiv site. If you have any additional questions, we would love to engage with you to talk about how some of the solutions that we spoke about today can be integrated into your dealership process to answer for some of the struggles that Gen Z, but everyone else is also experiencing.